just stumbled across something that I thought would be kind of an interesting watch here. Uh, and I think it's quite fitting for the channel. I like this David Starkey guy too. He's pretty
I'm
good.
particularly interested in the comparison you made there with the United States of America, whereas you rightly say, at least in my experience, the flying of the stars and stripes is practically ubiquitous. I would say, though, that generally speaking, Americans feel confident of their patriotism and nationality in their own skin. Would it have
Do
been
they?
better? Would it have been
Isn't
better
that
if
under attack? Sorry. Now, aren't you being complacent? Isn't exactly one of the things that's happening with Trump versus the New Style Democrats a profound debate on the nature of being American?
Mhm. True.
And there's also a wonderful article, something that I love using these talks to push good stuff online. There's an awful lot of rubbish. There's some amazingly good stuff. There is a thing called the Pimlico Journal, and it's just published an astonishing article attacking the myth of America as a society of immigrants, as the perfect multicultural society bound together only by adherence to a particular idea. And what it points, you're fond of statistics. Let me give you a statistic from this article, which is brilliantly evidenced, argued, beautifully written, very clear. In 1970, what percentage of the American population is foreign born?
Ooh.
1970.
I would guess it's going to be quite low. I'm going to
Well
guess
done.
5%.
You are within 1%. It's 4%.
Mm-hmm.
What
What?
happened was in the 1920s, there was a
What? That's incredible. 4%? 4% foreign born. 4% immigrants. Well, that doesn't sound like a nation of immigrants to me at all.
deliberate decision taken to stop melting pot America. There was a deliberate decision to preserve, if you like, WASP, white Anglo Saxon Protestant in America. And it's not broken until 1968. It's not broken until Kennedy on the one hand and LBJ on the other. And the new America, and by the way, they changed the immigration rules at that point in exactly the same way that we did much more recently between 1997 and the present day. And they did exactly the same. LBJ, unsurprisingly, Kennedy, perhaps a little surprisingly, lied. They lied that there would be no consequences of a shift in ethnic makeup. But the really interesting point about this article, Mark, is that it argues, and this is a point we've often discussed, on why the American Revolution works, why the new Constitution of America works. What the article argues powerfully is that America was, as you and I know it was, transferred England. That the American population in the 1770s, 1780s, 1790s, when this extraordinary exercise of, if you like, ethnogenesis, the actual.
He's absolutely correct there. Absolutely. Uh, the only portion that wasn't more or less British was a small portion of Chinamen and a small slave class. Beyond that, you're talking about English, Welsh, Scottish, Scots-Irish, and Irish. Those are all British. Every one of those are British. Now you of course you did have your Pennsylvania Dutch, your Mennonites, your Amish. Those people are of German heritage. But really, so is the Anglo-Saxon. That heritage is German, and those people were quick to adopt a lot of them were quick to adopt more. They were all Protestants in agreement, religious wise. But the WASP culture was very much so prevalent, and it, wouldn't surprise me if a lot of German Americans were married into the WASP's culture. To be honest,
creation of a nation, the creation of a constitution took place was essentially not so much homogenous because there were different traditions which the names of the states tell you. The Carolinas are essentially founded in the mid 17th century, and the bulk of their population came from dispossessed gentry with the crisis of the Puritan Revolution in England, as opposed to the New England immigrants who are of the opposite political and religious complexion. They're the Puritan revolutionaries from the Arminian triumphs of the reigns of James I and Charles I. But these are existing English traditions, and what both of them agree on is a political culture of self-government and debate. And the problem is, post 1970 in America, post 1997 in Britain, we have imported huge populations that do not share those values and are absolutely and are now totally proud of rejecting them.
Yeah.
They simply, and we shouldn't be surprised about this. After all, aren't we told by the left all cultures are equal? But equally, what the left will not recognize, cultures are also different. It is this insane liberal belief that we're all the same. Liberal universalism, that you've got a universal man that's got universal rights. This is infinitely.
this is literally why I started this channel, because this whole paradigm that we've had shoved down our throats in the years past about this international liberal order and the liberal man, the universal liberal man, that we're all just interchangeable widgets, and culture means nothing. It doesn't matter that we're all equally civilized. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Americans are brought up to fill American roles and to play American roles and to be Americans. Our the way we raise our children is literally suited for the adult life that they will be inhabiting. We train them to be able to fit into a system. That's the whole point of American culture and any other culture, is to train their children to run that culture, to run the government, to run the state, because they have to do it at some point. That's the whole point. And if you start trying to switch in people that have been raised under another culture for another system, it does not work. We're starting to figure this out. We're figuring out that the gospel that we were preached in the 90s and the aughts about everybody's equal, and people, like rose springing from concrete. And there are those exceptions, but they are the exception to the rule. And everybody's starting to come to terms with that you get, if you import third world people, you're importing the third world. You end up with little enclaves of third worlders. That's what you end up with. And when they get big enough, they start dictating terms. Like in Minnesota, they're doing like prayer call in towns now, where at 3 in the damn morning they're blaring sirens for prayer call. It's ridiculous.
Stupid.
Yeah, this is what I found quite interesting, participating in some, but listening to many debates about the flag. That those on the other side of the aisle, on the left, seem to sort of say, well, the St George's Cross and the Union Jack are all well and good as long as they bring people together. But they seem to mean that in some universalist way. I would have
A
thought
flag is to divide.
right,
It's an
an
flag is to
exclusivity.
divide.
It
That's
is to say I
exactly
am British, not French, not American, not German.
which is why I mean, Mark, you do appalling things like go to football matches, which my frail soul will go. "Blah, blah, blah." But the flags are there to say you're different.
Yeah,
This is my side rather than your side.
exactly right. I'm glad you made that point. I was going to bring that in because it's always my obligation to make a football reference. You're right. If you wear a football
I
shirt
usurp you.
in your team colours, you're not uniting the world of football. You're displaying your
Oh,
sectarian allegiance, and that's sort of fine, isn't it?
of course, of course. But we need to recognise this. We also need to recognise that teams feel the need to be different.
Yeah.
I mean, you're all playing so apparently by the same rules. When I glance at those interminable things.
And different doesn't mean better. It doesn't mean better. It doesn't matter in the end. We're all dealt a hand of cards by God, and none of us have a choice on what our IQ is, how intelligent we are, how good look, how attractive we are, what our attitudes are. Well, attitudes a little different, but there are a lot of immutable characteristics, and you cannot hold those against people. If somebody is slower, they come from a culture that is on average a little bit slower. That's not their fault, and that's not something to hold against them. And that's not why I bring up any of this stuff. I bring up this stuff to highlight to highlight the good things about where we come from, not to bash and to throw shade on other people. Not at all. And I don't get upset when other people, say how good their culture is and how good their people are. I don't have no shade whatsoever. But there's nothing wrong with us being proud of where we come from, being and talking about it, coming together about it. Here in Central Florida, there's a Scottish Highland Games Festival. I went to that every year. My parents took us to that every year for years. That's a big deal in America, from what I understand. Those Scottish festivals, people's heritage is a bigger deal than a lot of people would have you think here in America. And it has nothing to do with throwing shade on other people. It has everything to do with embracing yourself, where you come from, self-love, uh, loving your family and your people and your culture. Everybody else can do it. We can do it. And it's a damn shame that I have to pre-qualify stuff, but I think it's important. I think it's important, and honestly, I will defend Confederate stuff to the death too, because or in the South too, as well, because those are also people of Anglo, or British descent, and they're a lot of that culture. I think it was on there. A lot of it was honorable, and a very small portion of it was seed. It was the seedy underbelly. Uh, so I'm willing to defend all those symbols, the old, the Confederate flags, which are it's American history, and it's beautiful history. uh in my opinion, some people would say it's not beautiful, but they look at things a certain way, and I can't help how, there's not I can't help how people view history.
Which Lineker used to rejoice us with. And there's this team's got this character, another team's got another character. And you try to build up myths, which are really another form of temogenesis rather than ethnogenesis. But being serious for a second, isn't the whole thing so extraordinary? It is the left that has cultivated racism. We need to understand this. The things like the Equality Act pushed, to the ultimate by people like nice Trevor Phillips, some sort of mildly radical journalist. They're the ones that entrench race as a protected characteristic. It is the left that's pushed critical race theory, which turns whether you are white or black not simply into a conventional marker, but in the absolute grounds of your being the grounds of your entire society.
Victim
It's the
versus
left
oppressor.
who've argued
It's
that
disgusting.
whiteness, you know, Bhopal at Cambridge, Professor Bhopal at Churchill College, Cambridge, is the one who says white people as white have no value. Can you imagine? They're the ones who've turned race into the ultimate marker. Again, DEI, diversity, equality, or equity and inclusion programs, they rest on the notion that diversity means you have to take account of all these different separate protected characteristics. Now, this is guaranteed. Talking about bringing people together is designed to do exactly the opposite. And if you give separate human rights to each one of these protected characteristics, you actually go back beyond the beginning of the state into a war of all against all. It becomes a Hobbesian state of nature. The left has deliberately dissolved civil society. It has turned individuals into something like the law of nations, the old-fashioned law of nations. That's where the problem arises. And it's been the shocking failure of us on the right to develop the proper doctrine. And the proper doctrine is very simple. Yes, you have the famous scene in Shakespeare, that extraordinary John of Gaunt scene in Richard II, the island set in a silver sea, the notion of England as a walled garden. You need the wall round the garden in order that the garden can be peaceful and flourish and have all different kinds of plants within it, and to have a culture that is found.
You damn right. You damn right. We have a great culture here in America. We should protect that culture. We should protect. I mean, and we were bequeathed this by our fathers specifically, and they set this country up for us. Shouldn't we want to give it back to, or shouldn't we want to bequeath it, or bequeath a better nation than what we received? It doesn't look like we will be able to do that, but that's the whole idea. And America was really something. It's something special, and to mongrelize it with all this miscegenation, we're just going to invite in all of this, really, the refuse of the planet, and expect America to just keep on chugging. It's not so. I keep saying this too. America is inside of us. If they replaced us today with people from India, America would cease to be America. It would become India. That's exactly what would happen. The demeanor that people experience when they come here, the smiles and the well-natured attitudes, that is a way of being, an attitude, a way of life, a culture. And it's instilled in us in our childhood. That's why people want to come here and raise their kids here. They want their kids to be civilized in American culture because we are the preeminent civilized nation. We are the apex in affluence, and I mean, we are the affluent country. We have taken the mantle from the English, the British. We should wear it proudly and protect it. We should be protecting that torch of American culture and Western affluency.
On peaceful debate and not on civil war. And we can now see that the whole tendency of the left's endorsement of multiculturalism and the legal formulae that they've used to push it is actually leading, and I'll use this word now, directly to a kind of frozen civil war. We're in a cold civil war at the moment. Groups simply not speaking to each other. Both sides now adopting the doctrine that there is nothing in common. You look online. You look between those on the right and the left. Each now, in my view, catastrophically, has adopted the posture the other side is absolutely evil and must be suppressed. This is, again, that marvelous biblical phrase, by their fruits ye shall know them. The Epping protests are the direct fruits of multiculturalism and of the official multiculturalism of the British state, coupled, of course, with something else that we should perhaps talk about, the deliberate suppression of free speech, because multiculturalism has been carried as an official doctrine. I talked again about the religiosity in the sense of this side, my side's right, your side is absolutely wrong, and a kind of negative image, a mirror image on the other side. But there's also, these doctrines are presented as religious. They are presented as not subjects of debate. Again, as in the whole transgenderism thing, a trans woman is a woman. End of. Now, that's not an argument. That's a creedal statement.
Yeah.
Diversity good, it's a creedal statement. White bad, it's a creedal statement. And we are, in other words, these are not simply civil wars, they're a sort of war of religion.
This is really interesting, and I think you very eloquently explained the kind of patriotic or nativist backlash to all of this, which, to my mind, seems to be in part motivated by this two-tier status, that it's become, sort of the norm to raise the Pakistani flag and to eschew the Union flag.
Or still worse, the Palestinian flag.
Yeah. So do you...
Same thing here in the States. Isn't it crazy, the parallels, how the two sides are frozen, and how you can raise. They had pride flags at the White House. They want to put pride flags all over our embassies, put forced pride flags all over the world on people that want nothing to do with that, put pride flags on the sidewalk. Well, here in Florida, they're getting rid of that, thank goodness, because, whatever happened to what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom. That's what my parents signed on for when they kind of tacitly okayed it. You keep that shit to yourself. We don't want to know about it. No, now it's on streets. This is horse manure. We said we'd tolerate it. We don't have to condone it. We don't have to allow you public space for artistic purposes, public space for you to walk around naked in. And these Palestinian flags too. It's becoming outrageous. The American flag is burned, but the Palestinian flag and the Israeli flag is flown. Let somebody burn an Israeli flag, and look and see what happens.
Do you think the symbols of the UK or England in England, do you think they should have preferential status? I mean, do you
Of
think
course.
so? For example, Birmingham City Council should be allowed to, perhaps even obliged to, fly the Union flag and the St George's Cross, but should be, prohibited from flying flags of other nations. Do you think that should be the rule of the land?
There's a problem here, isn't there? I'm sure both of us will have attended a July 14th celebration in London for American independence, in which we've all been terribly ironic.
July 14th.
What am I talking? One of France, isn't it? Dear me, the slip of dates. One gets so confused between these revolutions. A July 4th celebration in America, where there's been this ironic self-mockery by the Brits, as you've been plied with vast quantities of rather good champagne on the terrace of some very expensive house in Belgravia, toasting the American Revolution. Again, St. Patrick's Day. I can see a specific case for specific events. But what terrifies me, nobody pretends that there are Irish enclaves. They used to be sort of, but in a very minor sense of the word. The real problem, and the thing that makes it so alarming now, is that there are genuinely, they used to be called no-go areas. I think that gets it wrong. The whole policy of the multicultural state and the way the police force has dealt with it or not dealt with it has been effectively to let separate communities arrive which are self-governing, with their own community leaders, their own legal system, quasi-Sharia law, their own separate populations, largely Pakistani Muslim, and their own languages, with English barely spoken, their own values, which clash violently with ours. So what's happened is we have deliberate multiculturalism, and it's really important we understand this, has deliberately undone, as I said, 1,200 years of the progress of the English state. We were the first state actually to eliminate clans. The essential border clans, the border reivers, the Welsh borders, Scotland lost in the 18th century. Because what a clan is, it's a group of people held together by cousin marriage. And when we talk about the grooming gangs, we're using the wrong word. That's just the criminal aspect of the thing. But if you actually look at those charged, the masses of them, you'll find they're all related. They're brothers, uncles,
It
second
is a
cousins,
clan
third
thing.
cousins, fourth cousins. And it's this family group in which the individual does not count at all, which is why in Sharia law, if the daughter of one family is raped, the appropriate punishment is having the daughter of the raping family raped as well. Now, this is directly against the whole triumph of the English monarchy in particular in breaking this stuff down and imposing. The reason that we used to have good law in England, the notion that we had equality before the law, was because the English kings, both the Anglo-Saxon and more particularly the Norman, were so strong that they could enforce their law on everybody. And it's also coupled at the same time with the decision of the Roman Church in 1215 to reinforce what had been a long-standing development to ban first cousin marriage.
Yeah.
And this is the basis of our extraordinary delicate balance between community and individualism. And what we're seeing with these rival communities, with their rival flags. And this takes us then, you ask the question, is it Northern Ireland? I'm afraid it is Northern Ireland. You have rival groups with rival flags, with rival values, and profound intercommunal hostility.
You know, more or less what he's saying there about that, they're little enclaves, and what they're doing is with their flags and stuff is saying, "Hey, we own this." That's why they call them no-go areas. They're basically mocking the British people by saying, "Yeah, these are no-go areas. You stay out of them. This is a Pakistani territory." That's why they mark it with their flags. They're doing this same thing in Minnesota right now. The Minnesota flag looks like a damn Somali flag, and they're doing this right now in Minnesota, in Michigan, where they're setting up these little enclaves and then mocking and thumbing their nose at us, saying, "Yeah, this is ours. We own this town. We own this stuff." You know, setting up these little enclaves where they don't speak English. They don't. They go by their own laws, Sharia law, and their temple law, or their whatever the hell their mosque law, where they have the prayer call. I mean, this is serious stuff here. These people. This is this is like a challenge to sovereignty and shit. It's a big deal. You know, especially because our state and their state wants to treat them like first class citizens and treat the citizens like second class. These people are illegal, a lot of them in England, and then some of them here as well. And you know, it's just nice to see the conversations being had. The dialogue is finally being had. Everybody's finally getting real about these ethnic situations. It sees that there needs to be something done about it.